The Galactic Military Academy stretched across the horizon, a testament to advanced technology and brutal tradition, where the brightest and strongest of countless alien species came to hone their combat skills. Massive towers stood above harsh landscapes, each hosting simulations designed to test every conceivable survival skill. The most infamous was the Century Siege scenario. For 100 years, cadets from every corner of the galaxy had attempted to beat it, and for 100 years, they'd failed. The Century Siege was a brutal simulation, meticulously crafted to mimic an assault by the Tkar, a warrior race feared for their unyielding persistence and battle prowess. The Tkar were relentless, programmed to close in on all sides, cut off supplies, and grind defenders down through sheer attrition. It was the Academy's gold standard of impossible scenarios, meant to teach recruits humility and endurance. Only the bravest, or perhaps the most foolish, even attempted it. This year's cohort was a mix of species, with hardened scales, tendrils, feathers, and claws. Among them were the human cadets, or Deathworlders, as the others called them, a title given to species originating from planets considered extraordinarily dangerous. To most of the galaxy, humans were still a curiosity. They hailed from a world with gravity, weather, and ecosystems hostile enough to forge them into something different, adaptable, stubborn, and unafraid of taking risks. Humans rarely attended the Academy. Their strange mix of unpredictability and simplicity often left them overlooked. Many saw them as primitive, closer to animals than advanced life forms. Yet, here they were, standing side by side with more civilized species, and strangely, they seemed unfazed by the Academy's intimidating challenges. When it was announced that the next session would focus on the Century Siege scenario, the humans volunteered instantly. The instructor, a seasoned officer with a hardened carapace, paused in surprise, his segmented eyes narrowing in curiosity. Every year, hopeful cadets threw themselves against the siege, only to be broken within hours. It was a grueling endurance test designed to be lost, a lesson in learning one's limits. The instructor had expected more experienced, calculative species to take up the challenge, not these curious, untested Deathworlders. Beside him, alien cadets whispered, a ripple of disbelief spreading as they watched the humans step forward. A lizard-like cadet from a crash muttered to his scaled companion, "They'll last 10 minutes at most." Others nodded in agreement. The humans were known for their resilience, sure, but surely that wouldn't save them in a scenario designed to drain and suffocate, with no room for their crude, Deathworlder tricks. But the human cadets, a small team with clear-eyed determination, didn't seem fazed by the derision around them. They exchanged quick, quiet words, glancing at maps and familiarizing themselves with the basic parameters of the siege scenario. There was no bluster or bravado, only a calm, steady resolve. One of them, a young cadet named Foster, glanced up with a slight smirk, meeting the gaze of the instructor. "We're going to finish this quickly," she said with quiet confidence. That simple statement was met with open laughter from the aliens around them. Finish quickly? The siege scenario was a slow, agonizing test of endurance, not some quick skirmish. It wasn't meant to be won, certainly not in any quick way. To them, the humans were deluded, overestimating their abilities. The idea of ending the siege was absurd. And yet, for the humans, this was no joke. They had assessed the scenario, considered the tactics they'd need, and believed in a specific strategy. There was a quiet intensity in their demeanor, one that hinted at experience in situations that demanded creative solutions and rapid adaptation. Despite the ridicule, they remained unshaken, holding their ground as others scoffed and dismissed them. The instructor, curious despite himself, activated the siege simulation, bringing the cadets' environment to life. Holographic projectors formed towering walls around the team, desolate landscapes stretching out to the horizon, soon to be filled with car forces. The simulation was relentless, every aspect calibrated to bring its defenders to the edge of despair. The car forces wouldn't attack all at once. Instead, they would probe, exploit weaknesses, and apply unyielding pressure until there was nothing left to defend. As the countdown began, the human cadets tightened their grips on their gear, unflinching. They were surrounded by alien allies, each cadet from another world, all eager to see these Deathworlders fall flat on their faces. The bet was that they wouldn't last more than a few minutes once the full weight of the Khar's simulated siege began to crush down on them. It was a simulation built on a century of failure, an unbroken line of cadets beaten down and taught the limits of their endurance. For most, it was a lesson in accepting defeat gracefully, a humbling experience that solidified one's place in the academy hierarchy. Nobody ever expected to complete the scenario. It simply couldn't be done. But the humans weren't interested in lessons about endurance or graceful failure. They had no intention of just surviving the siege, they intended to break it. This wasn't a test to them. It was a challenge, one they fully believed they could conquer, and they intended to do so with speed and precision. As the final seconds ticked down, one of the human cadets glanced over his shoulder at the crowd of skeptics and offered a faint, knowing smile. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing. The simulation sprang to life around the cadets, transforming the training ground into a war-torn cityscape. The structures, though holographic, loomed as stark reminders of past battles, with fortified walls and narrow, debris-strewn streets. Dust swirled through the air as the distant thunder of Tkar war drums began, signaling the start of the siege. The humans and their alien allies stood at the ready, clustered in a defensive perimeter, watching as the Tkar forces moved in from every direction. A relentless tide of armored soldiers crested the horizon, their sheer numbers forming a living wall around the city. The Tkar were masters of siege warfare, known throughout the galaxy for their methodical, crushing strategy. They never attacked in chaotic waves. Instead, they advanced in well-disciplined ranks, cutting off every possible exit and sealing off supply lines. As they closed in, the cadet base was quickly surrounded, leaving no clear path for retreat or reinforcement. With precise coordination, the Tkar units positioned themselves to launch a series of controlled strikes, each designed to probe for weaknesses before committing their full force. It was a tactic that had ground down countless cadet teams in the past, leaving them exhausted, isolated, and finally overwhelmed. The aliens in the cadet team looked around uneasily. Every other group that had faced the Tkar's siege had buckled under the pressure. It wasn't just the numbers. It was the psychological strain of being penned in, slowly squeezed from every side. The Tkar's relentless reputation had been built on exactly this kind of drawn-out assault. They were the galaxy's unstoppable force, and the weight of that knowledge hung heavy in the minds of the cadets. This was how it always went, small defensive victories, each followed by an inevitable Tkar counter that drove teams deeper into despair. But as the enemy closed in, the humans didn't show the fear their alien allies had expected. Instead of freezing or scrambling, the human cadets broke into small, tightly coordinated groups, each moving with purposeful strides to predetermined positions. Alien cadets watched, puzzled, as the humans began setting up their defenses with a strange mix of precision and improvisation. While most species would fall back to the walls and fortify a single choke point, the humans spread themselves out, laying traps and arranging barricades in odd, seemingly random patterns. They fortified narrow alleys and exposed courtyards, blocking paths the Tkar wouldn't even think to exploit. The alien cadets murmured in confusion, wondering what kind of strategy this could be. One of the alien cadets, a tall, insectoid creature with iridescent wings, voiced his doubts. "Why aren't we just fortifying the main entrance? They'll breach the outer defenses and push us back in no time." The human nearest him, a wiry cadet named Brooks, responded with a calm confidence. "We're setting up layers. They'll come at us hard, but that's what we're counting on. Trust us." Despite their unease, the alien cadets followed the humans' lead, helping set up various barricades and camouflage traps. The humans' plan was anything but traditional. They were creating a maze of resistance that forced the Tkar to split their forces and fight on multiple fronts, something the Tkar weren't accustomed to. The setup looked chaotic to an outside observer, yet every placement had been carefully chosen. For the humans, this wasn't just defense, it was controlled chaos, a tactic honed in environments that demanded adaptability and resilience. They were relying on speed and unpredictability rather than the static, drawn-out engagements most species favored. The Tkar forces struck the first line of defenses with characteristic ruthlessness. Their initial push was like a hammer blow, designed to break any semblance of order. Armored figures crashed through the outer defenses, blasting through barricades with calculated, unyielding force. In any other scenario, this would have shattered the defenders' resolve, but the human cadets remained calm, unshaken by the Tkar's overwhelming aggression. They had expected this response and were ready. Small teams held choke points for a few seconds at a time, then slipped back before the Tkar could concentrate on them. Each fallback revealed another layer of traps and fortified positions that slowed the attackers down. As the Tkar pushed deeper, frustration began to ripple through their ranks. Instead of finding a single vulnerable point to exploit, they were confronted with a web of traps, ambushes, and misdirections. Their rigid tactics, so effective against most opponents, became a liability as they struggled to adapt to the humans' fluid strategy. Smoke grenades filled narrow corridors, creating confusion, while well-placed explosives forced the Tkar to divert their forces. Alien cadets watched in amazement as the humans coordinated every move with precision, turning each step backward into another tactical advantage. Amid the chaos, some of the alien cadets began to panic, their confidence wavering as the Tkar breached yet another line of defenses. The overwhelming numbers and ferocity of the attackers took its toll, and a few allies hesitated, their fears starting to cloud their actions. But the humans didn't falter. Foster, one of the human cadets, took charge, her voice steady and commanding. "Stick to the plan. We're just getting started," she assured them, her words a quiet but powerful anchor in the storm of battle. The alien cadets took a breath, shaken but reassured. They could feel the shift in the air. Despite the relentless assault, the humans moved with an unyielding resolve, a sense of purpose that cut through the fear and confusion. This wasn't a defensive stand, it was a carefully orchestrated maneuver, one that had the Tkar scrambling to adapt. The alien cadets were beginning to understand, this wasn't just about holding out. It was about making the Tkar pay for every inch they took. The humans moved with a sharp, unorthodox rhythm, a series of maneuvers that seemed almost chaotic to the untrained eye. Their tactics were born from their origins on Earth, a death world, where nature itself tested their resilience daily. Here, in the heart of the simulation, they applied every lesson learned from surviving a world that never relented. Unlike most species, who valued order and structured formations, the humans embraced unpredictability, turning the battleground into a maze of deadly surprises that only they seemed to understand. Rather than sticking to set positions, the humans utilized hit-and-run tactics, striking hard and fast before vanishing into narrow alleyways or disappearing behind shattered walls. They moved as if the simulation's terrain was their own territory, exploiting every ledge, corner, and shadow to disrupt the Tkar's calculated advance. Their approach to warfare was fluid, ever-changing, and precisely timed. Each decision seemed reckless to the alien cadets observing them, risky moves that no other species would dare attempt. But for the humans, this adaptability was second nature, a survival skill honed by millennia of evolving to face Earth's hostile environment. They used explosives not just for offense but for misdirection, planting charges in unusual spots to redirect the Tkar, creating choke points and diversions where none had existed before. When a pathway was blocked, they'd blow it open again, altering the battlefield to fit their needs. They set ambushes in tight corridors, using the dense cityscape to isolate small groups of Tkar and dispatch them swiftly. The humans knew how to turn every inch of their surroundings to their advantage, drawing the Tkar in and then scattering them with sudden, disorienting attacks. One moment, the humans held a courtyard, forcing the Tkar to commit a full squad to push them out. But just as the Tkar entered, thinking they'd trapped their quarry, the humans detonated a series of charges they'd placed earlier, turning the space into a cloud of dust and rubble. In the ensuing confusion, the humans vanished, only to reappear on a nearby rooftop, raining down fire on the Tkar now trapped below. The alien cadets watching couldn't believe what they were seeing. To them, it was reckless, a constant dance on the edge of disaster. The Tkar, for all their strength and discipline, relied on a predictable, systematic approach to combat. They would surround and close in, counting on their opponents to bunker down, waiting for the inevitable collapse. But the humans didn't play by those rules. They refused to stay in one place, adapting to each push and finding new ways to disorient and split the Tkar's ranks. Used to disciplined foes who respected the honor of battle, the Tkar were caught off guard, their usual tactics rendered ineffective against an enemy that seemed to revel in bending or breaking the rules of engagement. As the siege wore on, the Tkar's frustration began to show. Their warriors, unaccustomed to this erratic style of combat, hesitated before advancing, unsure if the ground ahead concealed another trap. The once organized ranks of Tkar were thrown into disarray, as each attempt to regain control was thwarted by yet another human ambush or diversion. What had begun as a calculated siege was unraveling, the Tkar's famed discipline crumbling under the strain of facing an enemy that didn't respect their tactics or rules. Not all of the alien cadets were impressed by the humans' methods. One of them, a tall, armored recruit from the Eclarian species, voiced his concern, antennae twitching in disapproval. "This is reckless," he hissed as a human cadet primed another explosive near the base of a crumbling wall. "You're putting us all at risk with these unpredictable tactics. You're too chaotic." The human Foster didn't even look up as she continued setting the charges. With a grin, she replied, "That's the thing about humans, we're at our best in chaos." She glanced at the alien cadet, her expression both daring and calm. "When the rules break down, when there's no clear path, that's when we find ours." Her voice held an unwavering confidence, a reminder that humans thrived where others would falter. This wasn't recklessness, it was calculated risk, the willingness to face danger head-on and turn it into opportunity. The alien cadet stared, still dubious but visibly affected by her conviction. He couldn't fully grasp this human mentality, this strange willingness to dive headfirst into situations that seemed to offer only disaster. But as he watched the car falter, confused and off balance, he began to understand. The humans didn't just survive chaos, they mastered it, turned it into an advantage, a weapon that kept their enemies constantly second-guessing. One by one, the other alien cadets started to see it too. The humans weren't just unpredictable, they were adaptable in a way that few species were. They could pivot strategies on a moment's notice, improvising with a ruthless efficiency that threw the Tkar into disarray. Where other species would hesitate, searching for a way to restore order, the humans found strength in the disorder, pressing the Tkar further into confusion. The Tkar, veterans of countless sieges, were now caught in a rhythm that was no longer their own. Instead of pressing forward, they spent more and more time regrouping, checking for traps, and scrambling to regain the upper hand. What was supposed to be a relentless onslaught had turned into a battle for survival, and it was the humans, with their raw and unrefined tactics, who held the edge. For the first time in the simulation's history, the Tkar were on the defensive, struggling to adapt to an opponent who refused to play the game by traditional rules. As the Tkar lines began to thin, alien cadets exchanged glances, the initial skepticism in their eyes giving way to a glimmer of respect. They were starting to see the humans' advantage, not in brute strength or advanced technology, but in their sheer willingness to embrace the chaos and use it as a weapon. The humans hadn't come to survive the siege, they'd come to break it on their own terms. And with every improvised move, every explosion, and every ambush, they were doing just that. The humans sensed the shift, an almost imperceptible hesitation in the Tkar ranks, and they seized it without a second thought. What had started as a desperate defense was now evolving into a bold, relentless offense. The humans had pushed the Tkar to their limit, exposing cracks in their once impenetrable lines. Without waiting for approval, the humans rallied their alien allies and launched a coordinated counterattack, moving with newfound momentum. The Tkar's leadership, unprepared for this sudden reversal, scrambled to adjust but struggled to keep up. The Tkar were infamous for their structured command chain, their reliance on strict orders and sequences. In any other siege, that discipline gave them an overwhelming edge. But now, facing human cadets who moved like the shifting wind, the rigidity of their command became a liability. The humans exploited this weakness, targeting Tkar squads that had become isolated and disrupting communications between their ranks. The Tkar command was thrown into disarray, their coordinated assault unraveling as human cadets hit hard and fast, attacking from unpredictable angles that defied conventional military logic. The cadets spared nothing in their assault. They used every resource at their disposal, every piece of rubble, every damaged wall, every discarded weapon they could find. Explosives were rigged in places the car would least expect, forcing them to backtrack, to stumble, to rethink their positions. Human cadets wielded improvised tools with the same efficiency as their standard-issue gear, crafting devices from salvaged parts to create additional distractions and traps. What the car saw as chaos, the humans controlled with precision, launching attack after attack, unrelenting. The human strategy left the car stumbling, grasping for any semblance of order. With every skirmish, the tar soldiers were left more battered and less organized, their feigned discipline chipped away bit by bit. Alien allies who had once doubted the humans' unconventional tactics now followed eagerly, their initial skepticism melting into admiration and respect. The humans led the charge, and their ferocity was infectious. Even those who'd once considered the humans reckless couldn't deny the effectiveness of their methods. The car's imposing presence was breaking down before their eyes. In one crucial moment, the car attempted to regroup, forming a defensive line at the edge of the city's central plaza. It was a desperate bid to reclaim control, to re-establish the organized ranks that had once given them such power. But the humans anticipated this move, dividing into smaller squads to flank the car from every direction. They didn't allow the car even a moment to consolidate. As soon as the car group started to form a line, a human squad would disrupt it, drawing their attention away just long enough for another squad to slip in from a different side. The car tried countering, regrouping, and forming new strategies on the fly, but every attempt was met with precise countermaneuvers from the humans. By now, the alien cadets fighting alongside the humans had fully committed, each inspired by the humans' courage and creativity. They adapted to the human cadets' methods, learning to read the battlefield in ways they never considered before, taking risks they would have previously deemed foolish. The battle was reaching a fever pitch. The car, once considered an unstoppable force, were now in full retreat, losing ground with every passing moment. The humans pressed forward with the same fierce determination they'd shown from the beginning, relentless and unwavering. Their adaptability and instinct for survival had turned the tide, and the car had no answer. Their once powerful formations now resembled scattered fragments, each squad isolated, each movement countered. As the human-led coalition pushed deeper into the heart of the car forces, a sense of awe filled the air. The alien allies, who had started the simulation skeptical, now watched in astonishment as the car faltered and crumbled under the humans' relentless advance. Word spread among the cadets. The humans were on the verge of achieving the impossible. The realization was electric, a surge of hope and excitement that spread through the ranks. For the first time in a century, it looked as though someone might actually win the scenario. And not just anyone. Humans, the so-called primitive species, the Deathworlders who had been underestimated from the start. With every passing second, the car defenses grew weaker, their strategies shattered by the humans' adaptability and unyielding drive. What had once been an unwinnable siege was now a battlefield of possibility. The cadets, human and alien alike, could feel it, a breakthrough was imminent. The end of the century-long siege was within reach, and it was the humans leading the charge, proving that sometimes the strongest weapon isn't advanced technology or sheer numbers, but the willingness to defy all expectations and refuse to give up. With the car ranks fractured and desperate, the humans launched their final strike. In a coordinated assault that left no room for the enemy to regroup, they closed in on the last pockets of car resistance. Every cadet moved with purpose, each squad knowing exactly when and where to strike. The car, for the first time in the history of the scenario, faltered visibly. Their once unbreakable lines had crumbled under the relentless onslaught of tactics they had never anticipated. And in the face of these Deathworlder cadets, they were forced into full retreat. The siege was over. The humans had broken it. The simulation's end felt surreal. As the tar forces scattered in disarray, a notification flashed across the cadets' heads-up displays, signaling victory. An audible hum settled over the battlefield, the silence of an unexpected triumph. The human cadets exchanged brief, wordless glances, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and quiet satisfaction. Meanwhile, their alien allies stood frozen, processing what had just happened. Many couldn't believe it. They'd been part of the first team in a century to achieve what was thought impossible. Back in the Academy's control room, rows of instructors and senior cadets had watched the final moments of the simulation in stunned silence. The victory was abrupt, decisive, and entirely unexpected. The instructors had seen thousands attempt the siege before, always ending in crushing failure. To witness these humans, a species still new to the Academy, shatter that record was unfathomable. For a moment, no one spoke, each alien instructor trying to process the implications. Some looked to their monitors as if searching for errors, while others simply stared, openly awed. Word spread rapidly across the Academy. The impossible had happened. The humans had beaten the century siege scenario, not by attrition, but by dismantling the Tkares strategy entirely. Alien cadets who had watched from afar crowded into the simulation room as the human cadets exited, sweaty and fatigued but undeniably triumphant. Many aliens stared, whispering among themselves, exchanging glances that mixed disbelief with newfound admiration. The humans, once viewed as primitive and inexperienced, had done the unthinkable. One by one, alien cadets approached the humans, this time not with skepticism or curiosity but with genuine respect. The initial dismissiveness was gone. Now, they looked at the humans as equals, no, as something more than that. They saw in them qualities they hadn't expected, the daring to challenge the impossible, the adaptability to overcome the unknown, and the sheer resilience to keep pushing even when logic said they should have failed. An alien cadet, once one of the loudest skeptics, offered a sincere, almost reverent nod to the human team, acknowledging their achievement. The Academy's instructors, too, were deeply shaken. This victory went beyond breaking a simulation. The humans had revealed something new about warfare, something the Academy had not anticipated. Instructors murmured among themselves, recognizing that human strategy, rooted in creativity, improvisation, and unpredictability, could change the galaxy's approach to conflict. Until now, the Academy's training methods had been built on tradition, on refined strategies passed down from generation to generation. But the humans had shown that rules could be rewritten. As the cadets dispersed, still buzzing from the unprecedented victory, one of the senior instructors, an alien veteran of countless simulations, approached the human squad. She looked at them with a mixture of respect and something close to awe. "You've changed things," she admitted, her voice carrying the weight of a reluctant truth. "We will have to reconsider what we thought we knew about warfare. And about you humans." In that moment, it was clear that the humans had done more than just win a simulation. They had made a mark on the Academy, one that would resonate for years to come. For the other cadets, the humans had set a new standard, showing that courage and creativity could eclipse raw power and tradition. The Academy, once a place that had seen humans as curiosities, would now have to confront the reality that these Deathworlders were forces to be reckoned with. The humans exchanged looks, a faint smile on each of their faces. They understood the significance of what they'd done, but to them, this was simply a matter of being who they were, of using everything they had, every instinct and scrap of knowledge from a world that had demanded their resilience. As they left the simulation room, one of the human cadets, sensing the weight of the moment, paused and looked back at the gathering crowd. With a grin that held both pride and challenge, he summed it up in a single sentence that would echo through the Academy long after they were gone. "That's just how we do things on a death world."